Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be here today with my friend Jermaine Jones, and we are going to talk all about heartbreak, breakups. How do you get through it? How do you get yourself back into the dating scene? So I am so excited for this chat. We've been talking about it just on the side, just us two, right? So I'm really excited that we have this time to actually talk about it for the ladies watching today. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to get you, Jermaine, to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and what led you down this path.
Sure. Thank you so much for Muriel. I love your name. Muriel, for having me. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. I am a life coach for women 35 and up. Most of my clients are in their 40s. I really help them get their sexy back. And what that means is really healing their heart, getting them back to themselves so that they can elevate their relationships, their bodies, their mindset. And dating falls into that. It's a tricky world out there, especially if you're like a woman in your 40s and you're dating and you didn't expect to be there. So I think what really got me down the path of coaching in general was just realizing that healing is the foundation of everything. Women coming to me and they're wanting to, make their relationship better or get a better body or just, feel more confident and attractive. It always goes back to that healing. And since that's work that I've had to do, I feel like it's a lifelong journey. We don't really stop. I just really wanted the work that I do in the world to be focused on that. So that's how I got here.
Well, that's great. And if you're open to sharing a little bit, are you open to sharing a little bit? What's been your story? What's been kind of your journey in terms of like heartbreak and breakups? How has that looked for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, that's a loaded question. I mean, how much time do we have? I would say it's kind of run the gamut of all the things, right? It's like when I look back and reflect without having to think about one story in particular, the common themes seem to be for me staying in relationships longer than I needed to. Maybe not being equipped with the right tools or resources to navigate expressing or communicate what I really wanted. Is this okay? Am I safe here? And so inevitably not following my intuition, not wanting to be maybe the person who ended a relationship because I felt heartbreak. I don't want to be the person that caused it. I would find a way to stay in the relationship longer, even though I feel like God, the universe, whoever you pray to or believe in, I think that we get signs and your intuition's kind of like an internal GPS, like go this way. And you're like, no, 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 no. Or it's showing you something that you need to be aware of. And you're like, well, that's not what that is. I was very good at making those signs into something else. Well, that's not really what I'm seeing. I have since become 100% aware that when people show you who they are, you need to believe them. And that's not to say that all situations and relationships are the man's fault. If you've worked with me before, any of my clients, I am not into, and I know you've said this before too, I am not into the man bashing thing. In fact, when I hear women say things like, there's no good men in the world and all men are dogs, I'm like, honey, you need coaching. So I think my experience with heartbreak has shown me a lot about where I had work to do, so it is not fun by any means. And if you are going through that right now, anyone who's watching this, my heart goes out to you because it is one of the pains that really runs deep. It stings a lot. It's difficult and challenging to get past. We're going to talk about that, but
and it's universal. Like we were saying before I started recording, this is like something that, most of us, like I want to say all, but I mean, there might be exceptions, but I think the vast majority of us have been through something like this. And I love how you talked about, in the intro, you talked about healing, and now you just talked about your internal GPS system, your intuition. This is so important. And that is something definitely that can just, go a bit haywire, the less healed we are, the more trauma or the more bad relationships, we start doubting kind of our internal GPS, our intuition, which is such an important guide for us when it comes to love and dating.
It is. And it's so important because when we are not addressing it, and this is male and female, there's only two men that I've worked with on this. Most of my clients are women too. But when we're not doing that work, we're making decisions from this. I know men don't want to use that word wounded, but we all have healing to do. We saw relationships modeled in front of us from our parents, or if you came from a single parent household, you saw what you thought. I mean, who knows what you saw, right? But I know plenty of some of my clients that came from a two-parent household. So you learn that what you saw, your brain defaults to, well, that's right. That's how you should be doing it. And so you go into these relationships with the dynamic of, well, I know how to do this, but really you're only doing what you know. You're modeling what was modeled before you rather than even being open to a new way of doing things. So that is why working with a coach, the way you work with clients in Happily Ever After, the way I work with my clients, helping them get their sexy back, it really is about teaching them a new way of being. You don't even know that there's other ways to communicate or to express yourself or to set boundaries that could actually prevent maybe a divorce or a breakup or anything like that. We like to go back and say, well, if this person had done this, then, and really it's that they had their little tool belt of relationship skills and you had yours. And sometimes they don't work well together. And really, it's just about being open to seeing things differently. So
yeah. And just to add to what you were saying, like earlier on about we tend to, by default, a lot of times tend to blame the other person. But what we don't realize is that when we're doing that, we're giving away so much power, and we have so much more power than we realize. So, it's about, and I think that's what you're saying too, in terms of when you work with client, a big part of it is taking your power back and,
yes.
Bringing that focus back to you. And yeah, it might be true, everything you say, in most cases, it probably is true. And it is what you experience. But at the same time, your power comes from, again, redirecting it back to you. And just to add also on what you were saying about, what you saw either growing up in your family, the role models you've had, and you start thinking, that's what you saw, that's what you think is right. Even beyond that too, in a weird way, sometimes that becomes your comfort because it's your familiarity. It becomes comfortable no matter how maybe dysfunctional it was or unhealthy it was. That becomes your comfort, and your brain wants to stay in its comfort zone. And a big part of the work that we do as coaches is overcoming that.
Absolutely. And I don't want anyone to say that. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying if your relationship didn't work out, you probably came from a dysfunctional family or something like this. A lot of times it's just, it could be something, a dynamic in your family where you weren't able to express yourself or process emotions. That's a big one that I find with both the men and the women, is not being able to access their feelings. And so trying to be in a relationship, let's say, where people are trying to figure out what's going on. You want to know what's going on with the man. He wants to know what's going on with you, but you never learned a healthy way of getting him to open up and talk about that. Maybe you came from a very, militant household or, lots of masculine energy. And so your way of doing things, not only does it not work, but he also hasn't learned how to do it, even if you did it in a healthy way. So it's doing the work yourself, finding out that there is resources for you. There's a resource of getting coaching, of saying, hey, maybe there's another way to do this. A lot of people just throw in the towel. And again, I am not judging you if you're someone out there who's ended your relationship and moved on. Absolutely, there are reasons and times where you need to be like, hey, you know what? This has reached the finish line. But at least being armed with better skills, better ways of communicating, learning healthy ways to set your boundaries and even speak up for yourself, even identify what it is you want. I have some of the women that I've worked with, this is a struggle with them going beneath the surface to say, they might say, well, I'm angry. And, then we'll talk about, okay, well, what are you angry about? Or when we're discussing specifically how they feel, it always bounces back to, well, he did this. And okay, but what is it that you're feeling behind what happened? And it's amazing because I used to be there myself. I would be like, what do you even mean by that? And that inability to access feelings and move into your body is always going to interfere with your ability to communicate with the man or create that feminine energy that he needs to be able to feel safe too. So I will say a lot of us are walking around with masculine dominant energy because that's the world we've been raised in. We were raised with parents like that, and we needed to survive. Our parents needed to survive. So they instilled it. We got the sword and we're ready for battle, right? And especially with the age of our parents and grandparents, right? That was completely appropriate for them. However, now that I don't want to say we've won the battle, but to move out of that survival mode and reconnect with who we are naturally, that natural magnetism that women have, it's a challenge for a lot of women. It was a challenge for me. I think I work on it every day because that masculine woman, she's great in the corporate world. She's great running a business. She can fix things. Her brain goes into overdrive. But then when she's in a relationship, I say, like, if your boy takes over and you don't know that he needs to take a back seat. We are not in the boardroom anymore. And so you end up in this kind of ramming thing with the man. And it's like, well, who's the man, you or me? And then, not to fuss at the ladies because we've all done this, but men, they're like, a lot of them are completely detached from their feminine side. They don't know that sometimes you just need them to listen or just give you a hug. And, so it's just learning these skills that really helps us navigate the dating world and move closer to that happily ever after.
Yeah, just those skills, and kind of like you were alluding to right at the end there, in terms of even just understanding men versus women, because no matter how much progress we've done in society and kind of won these battles, which have created these other challenges, we still have some fundamental differences, even biologically, when we're looking at the hormones, right? Men run off testosterone, we're mainly estrogen and progesterone. So it's, even those biological changes, and the more we can understand each other at that biological level, and in terms of those skills too, right? When we start, it's a bit of unpacking to do and stuff to learn, but when you start, doing this work, it gets really exciting after the things that you discover. So I'm wondering, and we might have talked about this a little bit, but we can either go deeper or there's something else, but why do you think it's so hard to get through a breakup? Why do we take it so, we take it personally? And like you were saying earlier, this is universal, right? You work with men and women. Are there differences between the two? What makes it so hard in your opinion?
One of the main things that when I've worked with the women, one of the most difficult things that they go through that makes it so hard is that they want to know why. Why is this happening? Their brain that wants to solve all the puzzles and fix it and go into overdrive. What can we do? It's like a powwow. They want to know why. They want to make sense of it. And I help them understand that sometimes you are not going to get that answer. And that I am I have this personality that I'm getting better at it, but I want to know why something happens. I loved science back in the day. Tell me why. And when you go through a breakup or a separation or divorce or these painful things, you spend a lot of time wanting to know why. I'm sorry, there's like a fire truck going by. Why is this happening to me right now? I've been good. I've been a great partner. Like, what did I miss? And so there's a lot of energy spent spinning, trying to figure out, and you're just stuck there. So I think coming to a point where you realize it's not going to make sense. The main thing we want to look at is, where are we now? What is it now? What is the reality of it? It doesn't mean we can't have self-reflection and see where we need to do work. But wanting someone to give you an answer why and give you that closure. I think I made a post about this, but sometimes it's not coming. It is not coming, and you have to give that to yourself.
It's sort of like an apology sometimes, right? You know, when in the world of forgiveness, sometimes we wait for the other person to give an apology, and that might never come. And you just have to learn forgiveness on your own, which is work, and it's good to have support. But it made me think of that when you were talking about this.
Yeah. And I think we also make another thing that makes it challenging is we make that breakup or separation or divorce mean something about us. I must be bad. We use it to reinforce some of the limiting beliefs that were already running the show. I must be unlovable. I am, unworthy of a good, healthy relationship. I'm bad. There's too many things that have gone wrong. And we kind of co-sign on the negativity. And if we could, again, I know I keep saying it, but ask yourself, what else could this relationship be trying to show me? The end of this relationship, or, whatever's happening. What am I supposed to learn from this? And I know those are not the initial thoughts. I can tell you from having gone through heartbreak and breakups that the first thing you want to do is like, your brain kicks in first. Well, what's happening, especially if you're in shock? I've gone through situations where I really didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
I want to say my intuition was telling me things, but let me say, as far as not seeing it coming, I mean, the amount of belief and trust and hope I had in the relationship working, I thought that was enough. I also took things at face value, and I didn't realize that there are skills that I'm sure you teach your clients and that I do too, that really help get a better understanding of what is this situation? Where is it going? Do we understand each other? Do we want the same things? A lot of people are not even having those conversations. And those are dating conversations. These are, a lot of women that I've worked with, they're like, well, can I say this? And I'm like, you absolutely can. What's going to happen if you don't? You're going to say, well, he should have known, or they're not meant to read our minds. And I think you get the time wasters out of the way, and the tire kickers and the samplers, the people that just, they want to see what it's about. You can move them out of the way much faster when you know what you want and you're able to effectively communicate that, because it's going to run off the ones that are like, oh, I am not looking for anything long-term, or like, I was just looking for something casual. Whatever it is, you can establish that up front. So I think being able to have those conversations early on can kind of mitigate some of the heartbreak later, that we were responsible to communicate what our desires were effectively.
That is so true. Another thing I've noticed too, and I'd love to get your opinion on that, and I know that's something I experienced for myself, but I've noticed one of the things that can make it really hard for a breakup after heartbreak is sometimes we tend to lose ourselves in the relationship, especially, and I'm thinking here of women of divorce and even myself, after divorcing my first husband. One of the things is you create an identity. Sometimes we create an identity from the relationship. We're used to being the wife, or maybe we have children. We're used to being, the mother in the relationship. And then when we lose that, or maybe we take on a lot of the other person's hobbies or habits, or we kind of even subconsciously maybe change. I noticed after my divorce, I started dressing differently again, like myself. I started listening to music that I hadn't listened to in years. And it's like, sometimes we lose ourselves. Have you noticed that too?
I definitely have. And you hit it on the head. You said after your divorce, you started dressing differently and listening to music. So one of the things I work with with my clients after a breakup or heartbreak is really getting back in touch with who you were before the relationship. This is also important if, they're working with you and they're already in their happily ever after. We tend to get hyper focused on the man. Yeah. And I believe that this comes from generations of a message: be the chosen one, be chosen. There wasn't a lot of women in our lives reminding us that we get to participate in the choosing. So by default, we start to kind of adapt and become what we think, not phony, but you want to be chosen so much, you start to take on his likes and it's a slow process. So women losing themselves or feeling disconnected from who they are, it didn't happen overnight. So one of the first things you can do is focus on, and this may involve journaling, what was I doing before this relationship? There's something about your essence and your vibe that this man was attracted to you in the first place. And when we start to let go of that and shift our focus from living our own lives and finding our passions and still experiencing joy. I mean, I'm not saying there's not compromise in a relationship. And yeah, you might end up watching a football game or two that you're totally not interested in, right? But there's what makes you you. The ingredients that make you you are something that drew him in from the beginning. And where we go wrong is we start separating from that, leaving our passions behind, the things that we love and like, because we just want to be liked so much that whatever you like, I like too. And connecting back with, and sometimes that just takes time and reflection and walks and really shifting the focus back off of the man. Shifting your focus after heartbreak from him, not stalking his social media. Okay, I have to use this example because
yes, go for it.
Women that work with me, you know that I like analogies, I like metaphors, I have a little bit of humor. So I have to preface it by saying, please don't get offended by anything I say. I'm never saying, oh, you women, you're doing it wrong, or you men suck. That's really not how I am. I just like to help you look at things differently. If you were walking down the street and God forbid an 18-wheeler like hit you, right? You're in the street, you're like, oh, broken up. That's not funny, but I'm going to tell you what's funny. What we do. The 18-wheeler is the unexpected breakup that came out of nowhere and just knocked you down, right? We actually get up in the street, broken leg, torn clothes, arm hanging, and we chase after the 18-wheeler. Wait, I want to know why you hit me. And we want to know, where are you going next? And we want to follow the 18-wheeler. It sounds crazy, right? Why? What we really need is for the ambulance to come, to care for us, to take us to the hospital, to fix us up, maybe put your arm back on. Can you just heal yourself? But I say that to give you a little bit of laugh, but to think about if you were in that place of heartbreak or you're going through a divorce, you're totally focused a lot of times on that man. You've got to shift this energy back to yourself, whether you get back together with this man. I mean, who got the license plate to that 18-wheeler, right? You might get back together with him, but you might make space for your real happily ever after. I am completely a fan and cheerleader of couples reconciling and getting back together. That's so great. However, when the relationship ended, whether you're dating and you guys break up or, there's a divorce, something was not right. Excuse me. Something was wrong about the dynamic that you all had at that time. So the reason the skills and the work is so important, healing and getting back to who you are and finding yourself again, is because even if that man comes back around, there's going to be an entire rebuilding process. You really can't pick up where you left off. You can't have the same dynamics, the same, default communication skills. You've got to learn new ways of being. Yeah. So focusing on yourself when you guys are broken up and apart, reconnecting to who you were in the first place, that's going to make you so magnetic and attractive to either the man you want to reconcile with or a new one.
Definitely. I always say to women, I have a lot of women who come to me and they're in the should I stay or should I go situation.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to do a lot of the work on the, the intuition for that too. But I always say, regardless of whether you stay or go, you want these skills.
That's
right.
right.
And it's never even a waste. Like I feel like some women are scared to, well, if it's not going to work out with this guy, why would I waste? I'm like, practice on anyone. You want to be very good when he's not the one, you want to be really good at the skills when it is the one, because you don't want to fall back in the same pattern.
True. Yes. I mean, what you're teaching them in Happily Ever After and what I work with women on getting their sexy back, it does not matter if that man comes back around. And I can tell you, a lot of the times they do. They do, because men need their space and they need to reflect on, well, man, what did I do? What was I not doing? I mean, it's very easy in the moment to blame each other, but the work that has to be done on yourself and the skills you acquire make you better when that does come back around. It's not really about, and that woman saying that to you, well, why would I? That still shows you the focus is on the man. You're missing the point. Like, if he comes back tomorrow, are you ready? Do you have different skills? Have you done any work? No. So sometimes it's good that you all are apart. You've got to reconnect. And, I know the words feminine energy are being tossed all around the internet like, a Frisbee. Yeah. But the truth is, in simple layman's terms, it means reconnecting to your original magnetism, the ability to feel and process your feelings, and also be able to convey that to someone without fear of judgment or trying to determine what the outcome is going to be, because your masculine energy wants to fix the outcome and control the person and make them do this. If I do this, then they'll do that. That is all so very masculine. And again, I'm not bashing anyone, because I was very much this way. It's just my brain wants to fix things, right? But a lot of us will find, even in childhood, we were rewarded for this type of behavior. If I don't show my emotion and I stuff it down, and then your parents say, look at you, you're so great. You didn't even cry. You're such a big girl. Or look at you, young man. You didn't cry. Boys don't cry. Well, that's all fine and great. And I know men, even men that I'm just friends with, that they did grow up in this household where the man is like, suck it up, son. And so they learn to oh, okay, so showing my emotions is bad. It's weak. It makes me look, girly or whatever. And then they're grown in relationships now, and they can't connect with the woman, because they're you're that whole macho thing. That doesn't help our heart. We don't feel safe. And now, yes, we want a masculine man. Many of us. Myself, definitely.
Yeah. Same.
But the man that cannot connect with your heart too, that cannot, he can't listen, he can't relate to what you're feeling for him, or he's just that's whatever. Give me the remote. I mean, we got to learn how to do this thing together.
Yeah. And there are a lot of things that we can do too when we learn the skills to really, help support him either in having more of a healthy masculine energy, or again, we figure out that's when our inner compass, our GPS system is going to be clear and we can see for what it is. And when you were talking about, chasing after the 18-wheeler, whatever. Yeah. And instead of focusing on ourselves and giving space, and, in some cases the man comes back. It's funny because I think back to a personal experience years ago. I was dating a man, and I went through that whole situation of him breaking up with me with no explanation. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I want to start talking about maybe what are some of the mistakes women do after a breakup? What are the consequences of doing that? I know we talked about some of this stuff, but it reminded me of this. And it's funny because when that happened, for whatever reason, my mindset was in I am so mad that I ignored him. I didn't even want to know. sure enough, 2-3 weeks later, guess who's writing me back? So just a story of the power of that, right? But it's all depending in your mindset and some of the things that you do after, right? So for that particular relationship, and I was not that way for many of my breakups, right? Like I was the one chasing, with the arm falling off and stuff. But it was just tell me why. I need to know why. But it was just an interesting experience, and it just goes to show the power of shifting the focus away.
Yes. Yes.
So, are there any other kind of mistakes or what not to do, what you would avoid that we didn't talk about, or maybe what comes up for you with that?
What came up for me just now while you were talking, and we did talk about it a little bit, but one of the biggest mistakes is not disconnecting from that man and that energy. And it does not mean that you don't love him or you don't care about him, but in order to get your energy, clean up your energy, like you were saying, to get it back to a place where you can see clearly, you can feel, you can process, there is a bit of a disconnection that needs to take place. You don't need to be on his social media seeing what is he doing, who is he with now, oh, who's he married to now, or who's the new girl, or what's he doing today. Like, these are all really toxic behaviors that we have all done, but they really slow down the healing process. They slow you down from getting to your happily ever after. They slow you down from reconnecting to your health, yourself, because it's really your brain still looking for an answer, an explanation, or justification for something. But one of the biggest mistakes is not disconnecting your energy. I'm not saying you, like I said previously, you can still love a man and care for him, but you almost need to reset this. You don't need pictures of him that you're sitting on your nightstand still. He's got stuff at your house and you're like, smelling his. This is not disconnecting. And as long as you are in this energy, in the dating world, this is also the energy that you send out. This is what tells, to me, God and the universe, the type of man that you're ready for. You don't even have the space. A lot of women say, I want a good man. You do you though? It's kind of like a man wanting a good woman. Do you? Because a good woman is not going to tolerate certain types of behaviors that maybe you're like the standard for you, the norm. You really got to look at what you're asking for. So when you move into a place where you're saying, I'm ready for my happily ever after, or I want to start dating again, you've got to check your own energy. So not disconnecting from that old relationship. That's a big mistake because, as we said before, if he comes back around, you're having that same energy and dynamic you had before is like dooming it from the start. Dooming it, you know what I mean? It's doomed from the start, but like it needs to be clean. He needs to almost not know what's you're a new person. These types of experiences and pain and heartbreak, they change you. They change you as a person. Hopefully for the better, you're able to see what, you could do differently, what kind of skills you need to work on, but he's not really going to come back and meet the same person if you've been doing the work. If you have been stuck in this place of, woe is me, is he coming back? Why? Well, that's the same energy that's going to be there when he comes. If you're trying to date people, it's the same energy that's going to draw in people that will co-sign those feelings and make you feel more of that. So even saying that you want a good man, you've got to learn these skills that you and I teach.
That is so powerful. And well, you just coined a new term for us, dooming.
Dooming. Are you dooming your relationship?
Dooming your relationship. You've also coined the beautiful breakup. I'd love for you to, explain that to us. Talk to us about that term.
It's sort of an oxymoron. Obviously, we know that this pain of breakup, separation, divorce, it runs deep, right? There's nothing about it that feels good initially. There's nothing about it that feels good when you are wanting someone there with you. They're not in front of you. You can't see them. You can't talk to them, or you see them moving on. None of that feels good. But the beautiful part of going through this experience and this pain is you get to shed a level of you. I don't want to say a lower level of you, but you get to elevate your relationship skills. And this improves your romantic relationships you have with friends and family. You become better connected, more magnetic. You are more aligned with who you were supposed to be initially. And the beauty of that is your vision now, when the right person comes in your path, you're able to handle it. You're able to navigate conflict better. You have a better awareness of who you are, what you stand for, and what your boundaries are. So hindsight, as you go through the process of a breakup, because it does take time, you feel like time is standing still and everyone's telling you to get over it, forget about that man, blah, 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 you've got to know your worth. All these things people say, and you're like, that's not what I need to hear right now. I can know my worth and still be in pain. I can even know that this person is not the best for me in the state they're in right now and still be hurting. So the beauty of it is all of the revelation and the reconnection back to you, the self-care that you learn that you had completely abandoned in the relationship, everything that really helps you get your sexy back. That is the beautiful part of going through a breakup. A lot of us abandon ourselves in a relationship, and the breakup is the only thing that helps us find ourselves again. So That's really what it means.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we're about out of time soon. So I was wondering if you could share, are there any final words, any maybe key takeaways you want the women to remember after our talk today?
I want women to know that there is hope, that this pain is temporary, and that I know it sounds cliche to say it all works out for your good, but this is probably something you had to go through to help you be better equipped and ready for the person who is for you. Even if it's that same man that comes back, for you to be better equipped to handle and navigate the challenges that will still come again. There is no perfect relationship. So I don't like to tell my clients, oh, girl, y'all are going to get back together, because the reality of it is you may not. This may be exactly the situation you needed to even see that he's not really what you want. When you get better in tune with what you deserve and what your desires really are, you may see that when he comes back around, if he does, he's not really what you want. He's not really yet equipped to navigate things the way you want to be able to navigate them in a healthy way. So I just want them to, I want to honor you for even looking at this interview and letting us be part of this journey that you're on. I have experienced it. Muriel has experienced it. It is temporary. I know it feels permanent, like you're wounded and scarred. You're just in a little cast. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
You'll get out of it.
Yeah. And just on that note too, another thing I want to share with women as part of this is just for you and I, like, right, this can happen just to remove the notion of time too, the pressure we put on ourselves. And even if you went through a breakup, and I know for myself, right, I had to go through a first marriage before I remarried my dream man and had my happily ever after. And, I remarried at 41, right? So it can happen at any time. Like you said, it's temporary and it could be just around the corner for you. And it doesn't have to be, like everyone else.
It is. Give yourself that grace. Some of these timelines we're trying to move by, someone else gave them. Social media gave it to you, your parents, your best friend, your sister who's been married for 52 years. None of that applies to you. We are each unique individuals on our own journeys. Even the man is on his own journey. So one of the downfalls can be thinking that he's just moving on and, it hasn't even affected him in that way, but he has a path he has to take too. Honor people's journey that they're on. respect their choice. I know it sucks if somebody breaks up with you and you're like, this is awful. But for some reason, they felt that was best for them at that time. Maybe you were an awful girlfriend. Maybe you were an awful wife. These things happen, right? There's awful boyfriends, awful husbands. They may come around and say, hey, I've developed a new set of skills. But let's just allow them to go through that process. You go through your process. Really nurture yourself right now and say, gosh, you've been through a lot. It's okay that you're hurting. It's okay if you want to cry, if you want to eat ice cream and Cheetos, not for too long, but yes, do what you need to do.
Yeah.
You don't need to take everyone's advice and try to be pleasing everyone. Just sit with yourself for a minute. Know that you are a good person. You deserve a healthy, happy relationship. But it doesn't mean there's not some things that we don't need to learn. So this is why a coach can be so important, because in the midst of those type of storms, it's so hard to find our way. And this is what coaches help you do. I know Muriel has said in some of her posts, I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's not the kind of coaches that we are. So if you come to us and say, should I go? Should I stay? Should I call him up? Should I get back together with him? We hear you. We hear you. However, there's a frantic energy to that. And our job is to help you turn on the light in the dark room, help you find your way and get to the desire that you have, what's best for you. We don't tell you what to do. That's not coaching. Coaching is helping you dig deep inside of you and find the answer that's there. It's just buried a little bit. We help you unbury it.
Challenge some of those assumptions, some of those things.
Yes.
Are you asking yourself the right questions?
That's right.
Well, on that note, let us know where we can find you. Let the ladies know what you have going on too. What are some of your coaching programs that are coming up?
Well, you can find me on Instagram, Jermaine, Jermaine W. Jones on Instagram. And I am working on putting this beautiful breakup program together. Once I figure out the interest that ladies have, I'll come back to this video and drop a link underneath it. So, you can let me know if that's something you're interested in. And just, if you know other ladies that are suffering or going through this heartbreak, you can send them my way. And hopefully that will be a program that, you will find interesting and that it will give you some resources and skills to help you navigate this difficult time.
Yeah, no matter what, go follow Jermaine. Awesome. So I will link that down below for everyone. And also, if you love this video, I know you're going to love the chat we had on getting your sexy back. So I'm going to link to that here so you can go watch it. Thank you so much for being here, Jermaine. This was awesome.
You are so welcome.